everyone. Welcome to the Betsperts Golf Valero Texas Open betting preview. I am Ryan Noonan, excited to be joined by the director of all things content here at Betsperts Golf. It is Andy Molitor. Andy, how are we feeling today?
Feeling good. Feels like the week before your 21st birthday, Just don't get in trouble. Don't get in trouble this last week because next week matters.
It's a calm before the storm for sure.
Getting through Valero for sure.
Yeah, excited for it though. Again, more dig into it. Again, it's its own thing, so we'll try to do our best here to tackle the board. Joining us again every week in the spot, your favorite golf tout's favorite golf tout from Mayo Media Network, Jeff Feinberg. Jeff, how are we feeling?
Sort of like Andy in that respect. Don't want to get myself in too much trouble. It is the start of next week. My exposure, I think, stays low. I understand, to your point, Ryan, it is just one event, but want to be in as good of a headspace as possible next week. Like, certainly no chasing this weekend. We'll be taking all losses and just looking forward to next week.
Next week's an overextend yourself week, folks. I mean, we'll talk about bankroll management. We'll talk about being responsible with your bankrolls next week.
I don't do anything in my life. Like, forgetting COVID, like, I don't go anywhere. I've been down with my knee. I haven't even been able to take my wife out to dinner. I'm going to have to pay the piper at some point. Heavy. But I'm just a boring guy. So I make plans to lose money, hopefully not for Masters Week. Like, it's just budgeted. No offense. I don't want to say I'm here. I'm going to come giving losing suggestions or we're going to take losing lanes following me. But that's just, part of the cycle. Call it Christmas in a sense. You don't come out of Christmas plus EV unless you scored real big somehow.
I can't wait. I mean, I am such a sucker. You hit me with any Masters course flyover, 10-second commercial. You start playing the music. It's been, luckily we've had it on CBS for a couple of weeks now, especially with the tournaments. I stop what I'm doing. I just completely cannot, focus on anything when I see that stuff come up. So I'm ready for it. Let's talk Masters a little bit.
I have such bad ADD anyway that something can distract me on social media pretty quickly. But now, these past 2 weeks, people are posting it, and it's like Tiger's chip. Remember, he was right next to that second cut, and he chips in on that par 3. And I mean, it lands so high and then just trickles down forever. And I sat and watched that 6 times in a row. I'm like, it's worse than TikTok. I just lose hours to social media anyway. And then when they start putting old master clips on, it just kills me. But yeah, let's talk a little Augusta because people are following airplane tails and things are happening this morning.
Yeah, I have a painting of that celebration on my work desk because it is an iconic moment. So we don't have to talk about the board at the Masters, but I know again the futures markets are their own entity in golf, and you can bet them. They're futures. You can bet them ahead of time. You can bet them basically all year round. Are there any strategies, Jeff? I don't need to know who you got down on per se, but do you? Tickle your fancy a little bit in the futures? Is there any value in doing so? Do you suggest doing it? How should we approach it?
I used to come into Masters Week with practically a full card, but I swear to God, the entire landscape has changed, and the books don't even let you do it anymore, to be perfectly honest. And there's so much competition that exists in the marketplace from when I started betting the Masters to today that there's going to be a total reset of the market later in the week, Monday. Me and Pat been doing a show forever. We would have already done a Masters preview odd show. It's pointless because by Monday morning or it just won't exist anymore. The odds are going to be completely different. Outside of Scotty Scheffler and Cam Smith, and maybe you had Hovland's at 30s and now he's 22. Who moved? Everyone was in a rush to think you needed to have a Cantley future. It'll be the same number. Morikawa, Rahm, Rory can win this week and that'll create steam. But again, with the competition in the marketplace, you've got to absolutely love somebody to make an early move or be confident they're going to do something early. I have 2 bets. One of them is literally a nothing bet. It doesn't even pay enough for me to get excited. And is Thomas Peters at 125 because I thought he was going to win Riviera, and that's just how a golf fan thinks. I don't even think he made the cut. Whatever. I like the guy. It's a baby bet. But I've been bullish on Scott from season preview time. Like, there's going to be one veteran that's going to rededicate himself to take on kids. I said kids, not Kisner, because apparently that's a problem. But, to take on this wave, it was Scott, and his around the green and putting stats show that. And I have 80. That's the only bet that, like, I would call like an actual bet that I do have. So, yeah, here comes next week. And it's hard to make Masters futures because I only think 25 guys can win, and I haven't decided which 2 or 3 of them I'm going to bet on, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I took a step last weekend because I did have like 6 guys on my short list that I was considering and I thought I would bet. And then kind of the way some stuff shook out at match play, I thought that some of those numbers would or could move a little bit. So I took Brooks because Brooks was still available at 20. Again, that probably doesn't go anywhere other than like 18, but I would just rather have the 20. It's not going, it's not going to stay at 20 or go above that. So if Brooks is only going to get shorter, I took Willie Z at a 35 because I thought that was a mistake, especially with him advancing. Again, we see him, we're goldfish. We can only remember what we saw last. We see him advance in match play. Again, nice showing for Willie Z profile as well. And then I took a DJ, which will probably be static. Again, just shooting at the top of the board with Brooks, DJ, and Willie Z. But again, that's probably going to be the majority of the top of my card for the events. And then, I'll sprinkle in all my finishing position bets. But any thoughts there? Let's talk about Brooks. We touched on Brooks, Jeff, a little bit last week. Again, the form maybe being better than we thought. And then match play seemed like something that, in hindsight, I felt like a donkey not having Brooks because that mono thing seems to fit the profile of him. What do we think about
healthy in that event in years too? Because feels like he hadn't been healthy for the Masters in years, and they sort of piggybacked it. Yeah, I'm afraid of Brooks, even when he struggled. It's not like they're like I always look. The one thing with the Masters future market is the traffic only moves one freaking way. Okay, and that's what's annoying about it. Guy like Patrick Reed plays like dog shit. They still have 40s and 50s out. I'm looking for like 80, 100. Made like 8 birdies versus John Rahm on Friday, guys. Wasn't horrible at the Players. I'm just saying it might not be as bad. Just thought like obviously at a 40, I'm not touching it, but I thought like he's been horrible. You remember the odds he's had pre-tournament? Like maybe someone's posting master number. No. Doesn't exist. Traffic only moves one way, downhill, or you're stuck. That's the thing about them. Like any guy shows a little life, they move his Masters number. Brooks is at, so I never saw a big enough Brooks number. He'll get the steam. I'm also convinced books are going to give Brooks boosts next week. Like the books, I feel whatever their room of guys that make the bets, they're ready to take on Brooks. Their data points don't fear him maybe as much as they should. I'm certainly not looking to step in front of Brooks in any way. DJ's a super elite that I'm certainly thinking about, Ryan. And to Willie Z, now we're at the point, his first ever PGA win is going to be the Masters. That's sort of the question.
That's a big ask.
That's the ask now.
Will he top 5?
And the reverse to Scotty's now got to win a major under 20-1, maybe. And that's at least in our sort of short time span, that's reserved for Day, Rahm, DJ, and Spieth. And he's number 1 in the world. So maybe he is that now, but that is a rarefied situation. But yeah, DJ, I am kind of getting excited about, to be perfectly honest, and curious to see how that number drifts.
Yeah, I can't imagine it moves too much, but
he was one of the best golfers, and the entire golf world was, starting to roll on him. And then it was no knock on him that the entire golf world bet against him in the 3rd place match, because it's Dustin Johnson in a match he probably would have, if they said like, you don't have to play this, he'd have been gone. Like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. I don't give a shit. Like that was such a not care moment anyway. But like he looked good, Brooks looked good. I don't know how I take match play, and I have to use little parts of it match play. And I watch more match play than I would watch any other tournament, honestly, because we're so close to the Masters. And because if you just go look at results, you don't really get a good picture of anything. So many people, you pick balls up on holes, so you can't look at stats hardly. You actually have to sit and watch match play if you want to make judgments on how these golfers are playing because of the weird format. And I'm kind of pro Brooks right now, but I mean, going back to your original, like building the card out, it's kind of like the same as my March Madness stuff. I used to be so big on just grabbing these value plays on college basketball teams early. And then I'd get to the tournament. I'd have 3 monster numbers and they'd all get drawn in like the same 18, like they'd be right next to each other in the bracket every year. And eventually I stopped doing a lot of that. I stopped doing that with Masters outside of the year that they moved it, the Fall Masters. I bet at some random Iowa casino. It was a William Hill book, and I got Bryson 40-1. And then they pushed it to the fall. I spent like 20 minutes on the phone talking to 3 people asking like, is this ticket any good? Or should I drive back down and get my stake back at least if you're going to cancel it? And they called, they said, as long as it's played in the same calendar year, we'll honor it. So I get to the fall one with Bryson 40-1. And obviously
two of us had that.
Yeah. Goes,
when he lost the ball. They have no gallery. He was trying to make a move and they lost his ball. I think
right in the bushes right away. Like it felt good until he teed off.
So I am anticipating a reset next week, but the issue is I don't want to set my expectations too high because I think the books are hyper aware. Like we go to the players and we're so excited to see the odds of all these, like everyone's in the field and we're excited to see the odds, but the books are so hyper aware of the wild card element that the Players Championship represents, where, there's 150 guys, but literally it feels like 80 of them can win. Like that. I don't think that's that crazy of a statement. You even saw Lahiri there at the end, and you can name a bunch of weird guys. It felt like a 3M leaderboard essentially at the Players. The Masters, the books are so hyper aware that this is like a 20, like to be generous, you would say 33 guys can win this event. And that, like, I don't think that's a bold statement at all. The field is small. We've got the seniors, there's just a lot of elements that create that dynamic. So I'm hoping we can get something, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's next week and it's like 6 guys crunched between 12 and 20-1, because that's just what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I looked on the weekend, and I think DraftKings had 12 guys at 20 or shorter. It's just so you can't even bet into that really. You have to kind of let it parse itself out over the weekend. So
I like the 25 people that can win more than I'm almost mad at Jeff that he backed off his 25. It might be fewer than 25. Well, I liked your original number first, because I think you're right. But to like Ryan's point about, and you said like Zalatoris has to win, his first win here.
He would make the 25. He would still make, I think, my 25, even though that's like a big ask.
It's a huge jump.
He's
in this tournament. He qualified because he top 12 is what gets you in, but his qualifier to get in was a really good finish here last year. He's one of the guys who got in on top 12 or ties, and like he can be there. And that's where I think it's such a big ask to win, but like Sal playing well here, top 10. I'm jacked for stuff like that.
The event has been very kind to, at least in the short sample, outside of DJ, who probably I think was the favorite, and Tiger's its own entity. You can't even really go at that. But first time major winners sort of in that 40 or 35 to like 55-1, like Sergio Reed, Hideki, even looking at a lot of the other majors, like the first time major winners, even looking at at the other events in the last handful of years, that has sort of been the range that if you want to bet a guy who's never won a major before, there is that sort of sweet spot for them in that 30 to 50 to 1 betting range. And I am a sucker for betting guys without majors. It almost like I get to the majors, and unless I bet Brooks, I will be really cheering against him, because even Spieth, like, you guys have so many, like, I like so many players. I want to see them, win a major. So that's sort of the battle that I have to fight in betting next week, because I try to be methodical, but Masters just brings out a fanboy in me as well that I can't keep from hitting the double clicks, guys.
But that's it too, right? We touched on that last week, and I think that was part of the reason for me too, especially on the Zalatoris click, because I want guys that I think obviously can win. I'm not here to donate to the fine sports books across the country, but I also want dudes that I want to cheer for when they pop up on the screen, and the guys that I think can win here. And Zalatoris is one of those guys for me. The guys that I crossed off that'll be really hard for me are JT and Morikawa. I think those guys are terrifying to not back because they just can get absolutely hot. And but Zalatoris, again, like, I don't know, profiles well here. I think the number goes from, it was a 35. I think it gets down to 30, maybe some 28s in some spots. So it was a little bit of an early lean. Again, the numbers, like we said, maybe it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, he
could go to 42. I wouldn't be surprised if they toss it back to 40.
Well, that'll be disappointing because I'll then buy the 40.
Yeah, no, I would do the exact same. There's sort of like a total guessing game, and I think, like I mentioned many times, there'll be competition in the marketplace, and a player like Scotty now entering that category could help everybody, because that's just like another body in there. And if you're interested in players, I'm trying to think like Willie Z, or you see, like, Berger's a player I love, guys. I don't think he's ever broken 70 at the Masters. So just remind me when we're, there's like 40 to 1s on Berger.
Yeah, they're out there. Berger's a guy for me too. I have a soft spot for Berger, but yeah, he did not make the short list. But yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Just quick, do we get Tiger or not, Andy?
I'm like, in my mind, in my heart, it's like the stupid brain heart money tweet. Like, brain's 100. If we did that with percentages, brain is like 60%, heart's 100%. Money is 0% because I'm going to lose money on the guy if he plays. Like, that's almost a certainty. Somebody mentioned in the comments here, the exchange, he went from 120 down to 85. I've seen it moving around a little. Bookmaker still has a number over 100. Somebody said, a couple people have said, I can't wait for Tiger to play. I'm going to bet him to miss the cut. Like, first off, that's no fun to cheer against. And also, it's kind of hard to miss the cut. It's like 90 guys and 14 of them are old dudes and amateurs. Like, it's just, you really, really got to bottle it here. I mean, people will miss the cut. You have to. It's the nature of how the math works, but it's kind of tough to miss the cut. So I watch the price on that before you get wild.
I think he plays. I think that we've come this sort of far. I know the walk is treacherous and we're going to battle that. I'm no expert on his situation, but if he can't like re-injure what he's got and it would just be soreness, I think he's going to play. If there's a chance that he could like re-injure and have to sort of go 2 steps backwards in a rehab process, then I think he doesn't play and maybe just plays the part 3 with Charlie, because he loves to give Charlie that bump.
Yeah.
Let Charlie wheel and deal for sure. Even to be so in that respect. Yeah. And I guess here's the question. What is a fair player that the books could put out on a head-to-head that would be like at least minus 110, minus 115 or something aside? Like, who could that player be in some respects?
Yeah, that's gosh, because you have to price in Tiger's team and the love for Tiger. Where would Finau open up against Tiger?
I would take Finau in a heartbeat. Like,
Okay.
what would you? I'd lay 40 cents. I wouldn't want to pick on Tiger, but I would lay. Hey, listen,
Okay.
this is a guy that bet Finau
Fleetwood.
50-1 to win Houston, so I got him coming in feeling good at a course he's T5'd at maybe a couple times. So that would be one I would take to the bank, I think.
Yeah, let me do a couple and just pretend it's -110 both sides. Fleetwood, Tiger, Augusta.
Fleetwood's been striking
He's been
it
playing well.
fine. He's been playing totally fine. I don't know that he's prepared to win the Masters, but yeah, they'll both be like 85-1 if that's what you're asking. Like, probably if you I would take Fleetwood, but that I'm biased. Well, that's weird to say biased because Tiger's involved. But if at -110, I would take Fleetwood. The guy's been competing. He's been making cuts for all season.
Yeah. Just way more measured than I was expecting. And more measured than I am too, because I got the Tiger. Like, my body is so ready for Tiger on the TV at Augusta. Like, I won't even talk about Christmas Day. Like, I will not be ready.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for
somebody
players.
made the comparison to the NORAD Santa tracker as we're watching the plane. I mean, the Christmas comparison's already there. One more. Harris English, Tiger Woods.
Harris English is
head to head.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I had to give you one where you had to say Tiger.
Tiger Woods. But I also
close.
think it would be a blessing for everybody if Tiger Woods plays. It'd be a blessing for Scotty Scheffler. It would be a blessing for Rory McIlroy. It would be a blessing for Jon Rahm. Like, let him take 98% of the air. Let him take it.
It's a great point.
Colin Morikawa, it would be perfect for. Let him just absorb it. I don't know. If you win, you'll get the air. But for now, let him take it pre-tournament. All of it. All of it.
Yeah, we have a new number one in the overall world golf rankings, and nobody's talking about it. Like, he's gotten a lot of love. He's gotten a lot of love over, his success, but it's funny how something like the ascent he's been on just recently, and it's by far story number 2.
And my first instinct as he's winning is, do I have to full fade this guy in DFS and like outrights for the Masters? Because like, who is that charmed? But even before winning, the guy competed at every course there was, all different types of tracks, like long and narrow, short and wide and shot maker. Like, there was not a layout the guy didn't contend at before his winning streak. So I don't know, but my first instinct and second instinct is it's almost a compliment to Scheffler. Like, he's too good that it's created this thought of full fade, honestly.
Yeah, the price is getting it's a little prohibitive, but like you said, obviously the form is insane, but can you be that dominant? Like, we just don't see these. That's like a Tiger Rush run. If he this run of whatever 45 days or whatever is gets a cherry on top with a Masters win, I mean, we really haven't seen anything like that in quite a while. So it'll be interesting to see. So,
and most of the player, like Scotty Scheffler's season, even right now, if I had to rank the majors for him to win, the Masters would be behind both the PGA and the US Open, because those just, the experience isn't involved there, despite him having some at Southern Hills, but long and narrow, which is sort of what and difficult is what those courses, the PGA and US Open, have sort of built themselves on. And those are the types of courses Scotty can always stay in the fight on. This one, look at the last one: Hideki, Dustin, Tiger, Sergio. Like, these guys, they've taken even Hideki and Dustin. How many Masters did we think they were going to win before they actually won one?
Yeah. And that is the whole in the Zalatoris argument for sure, is that this is a place where historically course history matters more than anywhere else, because it is unique onto itself. So I can't wait to get into it. Let's get on the board at Valero because I think we could spend, we'll do an hour plus, I'm sure, next week on the Masters. We're 25 minutes in and almost in. We're halfway
there is
there.
a tournament in San Antonio this week, right?
Yeah, but it evaporates the second the final putt goes in, and it honestly barely exists as it's existing, despite there being real money available at every aspect. It's yeah, I don't know.
And some decent names on top of the board. Rory's finally going to play here, and Spieth defending. You got some Bryson, depending how you feel about that. Maybe that's where we start. And I tried to do this the other week. You did a terrible job of talking me out of somebody like Bryson, close to 30 and like I said, there's a few big names, but this is an $8 million pot. The field is the kind of field you get the week before the Masters. Outside of some of those big names, it gets real. There's a drop off eventually. Bryson close to 30 might lose some money on this guy this week.
I mean, let's start there. Yeah, I've already kind of been leaning that way. There are three. Well, I've made some bets, but at the top, I've been considering Bryson and Answer. But I'm all about Bryson this week. I almost feel like you just hope he revved the engine enough already. There are many times where I think an event where you'll look at a guy's number and you'll compare it to his number at a major, and you'll think, oh, this is actual value. You'll see like Rahm at some events and he's like shorter on a futures market to the Masters. You're like, oh, this is value just based on that alone. But some of those events are historic for long shots. Valero has actually been kind to the better players in the field historically, guys. So I really do like Bryson. I'm flirting with 30. I'm actually very tempted to be there. I've made 3 bets already on this event. He is not one of them, but I've been staring at it since I talked to Mayo yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, again, he came out and was a little coy leading into that Wednesday matchup with Richard Bland, that he's not going to let it loose. And I don't know, like, he didn't let it loose. I don't know how to watch Bryson and feel like he's not letting it loose. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's obviously not at his sharpest, but that doesn't mean that he can't come out at a place where you can maybe get away with bombing and gouging. And if the putter runs hot, this is a spot where, he can get 10. We haven't seen him here in this iteration of Bryson. I think the last time he was here was 2017. He was built like I am. This is a very different Bryson at this point in his life. So again, 28 is a crazy number. Let's flip it back to Rory, because Rory made a conscious decision to come here and skip match play to ensure himself, it may be a course that can allow him to get down and through the bag a little bit more than Austin Country Club would. And Rory being at the top of the board in really good form, 9 straight top 18 finishes before he stumbled a little bit with weather waves and some bad putting at Sawgrass. But, Rory is here, and Rory, again, we haven't seen him here much in his career. I think the last time was 2013, played really well. This fits Rory's game, and the Rory's game is in really good shape. Again, I know that we don't typically like firing at the top of the board, Andy, but is there, there's basically anywhere from 7 to 10 on Rory, depending on your book. Is there any interest in firing at the top of the board?
Man, not at a tournament. Like Jeff said, this has been a tournament that's been kind of good play. Even like when Corey Connors won, like that was just the start of Corey Connors being a good player. Like he is a good player now. He's up there in the people that are in all the events, and he's somebody I bet way too much, honestly. But yeah, I don't know if I can get down at a really, really short price like this, even at this event. Like, I'm going to be looking more in the taking it kind of easy, finding a few guys from 30 to 50 that I have some value on, and maybe just attacking the head-to-heads and spending more time on getting ready for Augusta, because I don't know. Like, if Rory just runs this whole thing out and wins by 6, doesn't surprise me, but I don't know what his motivation is here too. If it's just, I want to get a couple rounds in before heading down to Georgia. You have this weird feeling about guys who are maybe near the top of the board, or people who are in the field for Augusta, and they have a bad Thursday. And it's like, shit, what is this guy going to do on Friday? Is he going to even, is he going to try to grind his way to the cut line, or is he just is he ready to pack the clubs and ship them down to Augusta? So I don't know how I feel about some of the top guys, but right now it's really just Bryson and Siwoo for me that I've circled, which doesn't make me feel great.
That's an interesting thought, because the only thing that punches a hole in that a little bit is Spieth last year, right? He came in great form. We know Spieth cares and historically does terrific at the Masters. But then, won here last year, competed, and then showed up and did the same thing at Augusta. Jeff, you said you made some splashes at the top of the board. Is there anyone here? I know Answer, I think you mentioned.
Sorry. I was going to just say on that, the only like the Spieth thing, because last year Spieth won before a major, KH Lee won before a major, Lucas Glover won before a major, Garrick Higa won before a major. I think if you go back and look at the previous years, it's probably similar situation. Now, granted, the fields are lighter before the major, so that sort of just sets up for it perfectly. Spieth, I normally like to full fade the really top players with true aspirations, something really big. The Masters is big for everybody, but a player like Rory, there's still the Grand Slam. He's still at the point of his career. Hideki is the true full red ink for me this week. Battling the injury, defending champion at the Masters. He's really got to be a guy. If he wins and I miss it and I'm wrong on that, that's fine. But if anyone's head is elsewhere, to me, it's Hideki. I made an exotic with Rory this week at the urging of Pat Mayo. I have bet Rory to win this week, just in case he does barnstorm it, because the field is insane, it's simple. And to the Thursday, the $8 million prize, you have a good Thursday. You're just focused on probably playing great. If you're in a great weekend tee time, and next week will be its thing. But Rory this week and the Masters, it would make it 140 to 1 Rory for next week. The hardened gambler would be that's silly. You're leaving 7.5 on the table. As a golf bettor, I don't think like that. That's the funny thing. I hit a first touchdown plus 750. It's high fives. Golf guy hits a golf bet plus 750. He's who gives a shit, man?
Right? No, it's crazy.
I had a tweet about that once, that exact same thing, and I had so many people arguing in the
golf
comments.
Guy doesn't give a shit about your 750 winner.
Yeah, they're they're not the same. I'm they're literally the same. They would literally give you the exact amount of money back. But I said, if you cash Rom at 7-1, people are oh, nice play, asshole. If you pick the right tight end to get the first touchdown at 7-8 to 1, they're oh shit, nice call on that. Good job. It's the same thing. It drives me up a wall. And there are spots where
but I'm not betting Rory at that number, and if he does win, I'm not gonna miss the points that I should have won, because I never would have thought about making it otherwise. Spieth, I'm always afraid of in Texas, and he hasn't won since then, so he can be hyper motivated. To your point, Andy, about watching the match play, Connor, Answer could have had Connor's path and run. That was a nose hair. They were splitting hairs there for a bit. So I lean Answer over Connors, but I don't know. Answer, he's let me down at Valero before. I do have room to pull this trigger, but I am more tempted to just go balls to the wall with Bryson on a course that I do believe you can bomb and gouge pretty effectively, and he is putting quite well at the moment. But all my bets do come in that next range, so I'll just happy to share them now. I bet on Woodland a quick 40 in the morning, Finau a quick 40 in the 50 in the morning, and Chris Kirk 40 and 50 yesterday. So those are the 3 bets I have made. I could go in front of them with a shorter bet. I could go on top of them with a couple longer bets. So that's where I currently sit.
Yeah, the Finau thing is very interesting to me. From a DFS standpoint, I just got done talking with Pat, and we're talking about this field where we would typically have Finau in the 10K range at 20% ownership, and now we have him way down the boards at 9,100. There's 40s and 50s in the betting market. Played pretty well in match play, and again, if the putter has been really bad this year, but if he can run it hot, again, if there's a spot where He's not spraying it off the tee, and you can bomb and gouge it a little bit. Finau is still at 40, even though, again, you lost the 50s that are out there. Still just class above some of the other guys that are around him with Keegan's, and, obviously Hadwin is balling out right now, but Jason Day's, like, Finau is a class above that tier for sure.
Yeah, it's also a ceiling play. It's an outright bet. It's a player I like in a shitty field where it's sort of like, no, I'm going to take a stand on this guy in this field. But yeah, it's a ceiling play on the talent and also on the theory that, I don't know, I'm not overly concerned about the top players in the field. And I promise you, if Finau has a very good Thursday, the live market is going to treat him like Tony Finau, that really good player we remember. Like, that's how he's going to be treated on the live market. Not to say that's a reason to bet him but like the second those types of players show like the signs and the scoring of being good in a bad individual event, they'll be treated like the player that they have their name credibility for, I guess I should say.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a good point. And some of the books stateside too offer up, those very, very lucrative cash out options, which you should almost never take because you are definitely drawing dead. But, you can bet and get out of that if something starts to turn. So it's an interesting call. Andy, what do you got?
I have him circled. His top 20 price, like plus 175 some places.
Yeah, there's
again,
350s, 360s on the top 10 market for him too.
Yeah, with top 10, top 20 for Finau. I'm not sure I've ever bet Finau to win a tournament. I think I've just drawn the hard line in the sand on that and have used him in some positional bets like that and matchups. But he's somebody that's near the top for me that I just have this mental block about betting him to win. I don't know if I'll have a lot of outrights. It might just be some of these guys who are, priced out to be, somewhere at 30th, and I think are closer to 10th or 15th, somewhere in there. A few top 20 bets, a lot of matchups. And honestly, my outright card might just be Bryson up at 28, because that's still sitting out there, and some Siwoo. And it could be just those guys and maybe some live ads for this one, because I really, again, I don't fully understand everyone's mentality coming into this, especially the guys who are heading to a much cooler place in about a week.
Yeah.
And I'm out on Rory so hard right now.
I've been silly enough to think I would see more than the 28 on Bryson, that there'd be such a turnoff of him. But some places move their 28 to 25. Some places are keeping it. There's a place that I have no access to that I think has a 30. But yeah, I don't know. Bryson 28, as long as that's still sitting, that's probably where I do end up going. Although I am tempted, like going north of it, there are a handful of guys, Kazire, Fowler, like I could be talked into a bunch of guys. I'm a weak soul.
Yeah, I see a 33 at the score for Bryson. I don't have access to that either, but
really?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what states they're in.
Yeah.
Or if they're in America. Is that a Canadian one?
It is Canadian, and they're not even in Canada yet. I used to work, it used to be like a TV satellite radio station. It's where one of my first gigs. I used to work there years ago. I used to produce for like Cam Stewart and Gabe Morency.
Yeah, I remember that part. Like I knew some guys that did stuff there. Kalaji and Moretto.
Yeah.
All of them are Canadian now. He's not. Kalaji's not. He lives down in Phoenix or something. But yeah, Alex Barreto, I think he used to work there, still does. I know the media part of it. I don't understand where that sports book is. I'm gonna have to figure that out now, that if they're gonna be hanging 33s on Bryson every week, we're gonna find ourselves an app or an out at that spot. I think that might be, like I said, it. And I just wanted to point out, and Jeff kind of poo-pooed this, and I am going to poo-poo this also, but there are places who have Bryson 20-1 to win the Masters. Like it just breaks a guy's brain to look at that and then see other places hanging a 28 to win Valero. And I know, we've had this injury in his ham bake bone or whatever we're talking about. I'm not a doctor. I don't fully understand what's going on there, but he looked okay. And this is the place. And, where Klaus talked to me about this, and I read his article and I went through the stats on my own. I think it doesn't really matter where Bryson's tee shot lands. Like it can land in the fairway or anywhere 50 yards either way from where the middle of the fairway stands, and it's going to be about the same second shot for him. So if the putter heats up, he's in the last few groups on Sunday.
It's wild. We've seen like statistically greens in regulation and birdie or better rates are equal from the
and I'll be
fairway
honest, you do try to listen. We're guessing, like it's a total guess game, and I've picked the lane on Hideki's motivation, and Rory's is something that I am like. I bet an exotic, but if it goes like totally sideways, or even if he makes the cut, what is he gonna get? Like, he doesn't really want to, unless he gets like birdies the first 4 holes on Saturday or something. Like maybe it's just a conservation or a total work on. You're gonna spend all of Sunday working on one shot. Like you have no kind of idea, like a pitcher at spring training just serving meatballs, but working on that one thing. Like that's a real thing. That being said, with Bryson, the narrative that I have taken, and I would honestly agree with it with Rory, just based on how their season is gone, is they really want to taste smoke this week. They want to putt on the weekend that matters. They want 12 footers for par that are going to mean the difference of a final group or not. Because I don't know, you always want it. And I remember Phil would always say it, even at his peak, like nothing replicates that. And that, even to Phil going out and playing on a senior event before he goes and wins the PGA, just to like feel smoke. I want to contend. I want to have confidence.
Yeah. And we have this other like kind of narrative here in the field is that we have this open spot where guys can qualify and get entry into the Masters.
Yeah, I heard Fowler's name out of one of your mouths. Like he has all the motivation in the world to find himself.
Yeah, Fowler,
around
Kuchar. There's a lot of guys that it's weird to see Masters without. The thing is, anyone not in the Masters, like, isn't just the exemption and winning like this event and resetting your whole career and being locked. You like, isn't that like more important than getting in? Like the Masters is like a cherry on
byproduct,
like if you're Davis Riley or something. I'm just trying to think of a player like, and you're gonna try and win this event. Like you think about like the putt for the win and what that sets up, or I make like the Masters is just like it's a very nice part of it, but it's just a part of that total package that would have you feeling tons of pressure anyway. Like I don't think Davis Riley's feeling more pressure because there's a master spot going for his first win on 18 with like a 12-footer net on Sunday. It's just kind of my point, but it is a beautiful thing to see, and I'll be cheering for Rick even without a bet.
It is weird too, because it's like some of those guys who are quite a ways down the OWGR, it's like the instant cherry on top. But after 2 or 4 days down at Augusta, you're in the same position again. Like you either got to find yourself at the BMW or the Tour Finals, you got to find yourself into the top 50, or you got to win again, or end up playing like a lot of these guys. If it's a first time win, they're sitting way down the rankings, and they get to go play Augusta, but then they're not in for the next year already. So and that's where I think, like to Jeff's point, just getting that win, getting that maiden off your chest, that affects some people. I think we have somebody who's just suddenly winning everything because he got one off his chest. I think it does change how people play sometimes. So I think maybe that's even the bigger part, just having that win equity going into the rest of the season, going into some of these crappier events, like heading up to Connecticut, Minnesota, Michigan, and be like, this is a field where I can compete now. I'm a winner. I'm a PGA winner. I can win 3M. I can win, Rocket. I'm a guy. I'm a guy on the tour now.
100%. Are there long shots? I know, Andy, you mentioned you haven't really played anything. Seen a lot of these guys get some quality steam though this week from Davis Riley, who, a couple people tweet he won a Corn Ferry on the course, and I think that knocked the number 20 points pretty quick. Although the information was available on
months ago.
whatever. Patton Kazire, who I mentioned. I know both guys like Steele and Gim have been popular touts. I keep staring at huge Bobby Mack numbers that if you look across the market, I see as low as like 50 to 1 and as high as 90 to 1. So, I mean, do your best and get as big a number as you can.
Yeah,
Hogard at 100, I wouldn't mind a bit.
That's what I got. I have two. I took a Hogard at 100. Again, he's 21-year-old kid with a not formed game, but can absolutely bomb it. So this is a bomb and gouge kind of place. 100 is a nice number. 3 straight 67s to wrap up at Corrales, which was nice to see. I think he teased 6th there. So 100 is a nice spot. And then I got a Vegas at 60.
Yeah.
Again, nice showing, nice weekend at Corrales. The wedges have been nice for Vegas, which is weird. We know he can hit it a mile. And actually, the putter has been pretty solid for a couple of weeks. So Vegas at 60. I think those are gone, except the score. The score is a 60 on Vegas. Otherwise, you see there's 55s out there on Vegas still. So that's kind of all I've been doing so far. I'm interested in firing at something at the top of the board, and maybe I jump in with the Bryson stuff with you guys, but otherwise it'll mostly be finishing position bets.
Does that ever scare you off somebody if you just see the entire Twitter world also like Steele was a circle for me, and it's like fuck, everybody likes Steele. Like I don't believe in mushes and jinxes and all that stuff, but it's like, well, what is going on with this if the number's not truly moving?
It has to depend who. Because I think me and Ryan were just having some private correspondence when this happened. But like Scheffler at Phoenix was touted by a lot of people. And it put me off it. I'm like, I don't want to bet that. But then like you saw some people who I like really do respect, like your Ben Coley's or your Steve Bamford's and other people, just a lot of people, like people I really do respect their opinion. Like we're all betting Scotty Scheffler. They didn't care who other people were betting. And I like, no, I'm going to pivot. I'll bet this loser Xander and, Scheffler won. So I guess it comes with it, comes with the territory, but true group wins are totally rare, especially like long shots. So I totally get being scared off by popular guys, but I guess now it's more of like, I really do trust those people and the process. And I'm like a lot of people, like making these cards are hard. Sometimes I like to totally close my brain, and so I don't get swayed with anyone else's picks. And sometimes I'm like, I want to read 100 articles and then take all that information and make my picks. I don't know. It's always a choose your own adventure, I swear.
Yeah, it's
like
tough.
You don't want to know how the hot dog's made. You don't want to watch it, but you see it come out and it's yummy and cooked and delicious. I'll eat it, but how it's made is sometimes a very ugly process, people.
I worked at a hog barn in high school. You really don't want to know how hot dogs are made.
Tell me. I'm not. I don't like knowing how nuggets are made, how hot dogs are made. Oh, God, I just like enjoying them, and I don't want that ruined by that.
We won't ruin anything for you. Real quick too, it's funny you mentioned Bobby Mack. I pulled up matchups already, and I started just throwing my numbers next to him and looking how I'd price matchups. And Bobby
using
Mack,
the matchup tool, our new live matchup tool, right, Andy?
Yeah, matchup tool. I should screen share that next week for sure. I'm going to bring that up. We'll screen share that, show you the matchup tool. I'm still figuring out exactly how to use it. I eventually I want to be able to punch my own numbers in there instead of just using Sam's projections. I think that's version 2, which is going to be cool. But Bobby Mack over Poulter is probably a bet for me. Full tournament. Hojgaard over Thigala is looking like a bet based on him being almost plus 120 there. And then this is a weird one where I have to dig deeper, but really like CT over the Japanese kid on the European tour who I don't know much about him. I went and dug into some European stuff this morning on Kanaya, and just to make sure, because you run into some of these guys where you don't have a lot of stats for them playing on this side of the pond, and you got to go check. It's like, was this guy just, ripping up Europe? Not only results, but like, how is he playing, compared to the field and some of these stats? I think I'm comfortable betting against him with CT. but that one's on the fence a little. So I got some matchup love, and Hojgaard and Bobby Mack are part of that, because I do have Bobby Mack circled as a guy that I don't think I'll bet to win, but he's another one where if I can find a decent top 20 price, I think he's a guy who plays well here, competes.
Yeah, best number in the top 20 market I'm seeing for him is if you have bet 365, there's a plus 333, which is weird. There's some 320s out there, so he's north of 3 across the board, which is interesting. I like the look there against Poulter too, as you mentioned. So yeah, the Charlie Hoffman stuff is weird. Like, people are going to bet Charlie Hoffman and play Charlie Hoffman. He's not done anything for 6 months. He's like losing a stroke per round on approach, which is basically how he's made a living. Very interested to see what people do with Charlie Hoffman. I have no appetite for that whatsoever. When do we break up with Ricky, Jeff? He is, I know maybe never for you, but we have not seen a top 40 since the CJ Cup 8 events ago. I think we just have a large sample of him being a below, or at least maybe a field average putter, which is just really bizarre. But I know he's your boy. He's down the board.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw him as high as 80-1 yesterday. It's a bet that I didn't make. I'm not in a position, as if my picks sometimes don't lose me credibility enough until the squirrel finds his nuts. I just didn't feel like rocking a Finau Ricky card this week, Ryan. That would have just been a little too much. So we're riding with Finau instead of Ricky, because the Finau ceiling to me still shows signs of a win. He had so many. Xander was such a disappointment last week, but he got birdied off the golf course with a barrage from Finau that I'm hoping can continue this week. The ceiling for Finau is a late Sunday tee time contending for the win. The ceiling for Ricky to me is like a very good placing, and we're happy with progress. And we're talking about making outright. So I'm always rooting Ricky along, though.
That's an interesting, like, if you really wanted to put together I don't want to call it a cry for help card, because I don't want to feel little mental health problems, but like I hate myself card, like a Keegan Finau Ricky card. Like, I don't know if I could announce that out loud. That would make me feel bad. And I have some, like, I think the numbers are long on Ricky, despite how shitty he played. Like, he still has a decent ceiling. I would never bet him to win this, but like, he's a guy who could find a top 40. Just, we need those prices to keep coming down on him. And Keegan looks at me every week, and I just laugh, because I just can't. I can't continue to.
Well, you made that joke about like Finau's a guy you don't bet. Like Keegan, I don't know I've ever bet Keegan.
Oh, I have. Maybe he's my Ricky.
Ever, but no, I'm saying, like, you just see events, even if he's playing well. Like, I don't care. Like, that'll be nice for Keegan, and if he wins this week, happy for your 40-1. But all those guys, like, I just like Siwoo at 35, McNeely 35-40, Finau. Like, I would bet before I would bet Keegan to win a golf tournament. Yeah,
Keegan is a guy that I'll bet too, because I'll a fanboy in my own specific way with the fit. I like the Travis Matthew gear. I like the Jordans. He's from New England. Like, these are I don't need a lot of boxes to check, Jeff. They're very small.
We've all got our things.
So, if you're sporting that the right fit, I'm willing to put you in the car.
I'm not here to kink shame,
Yep. We all have our own stuff. Brandon Steele is, I got to get access to the score. Brandon Steele is 9-1 for a top 10 at the score.
I was going to say that's not a good price, but
he's like
10.
550 at most books. He is 9-1. So even more, well, I don't know, more so than outrights, but book shopping is a massive advantage if you have access to multiple, being able to get down and finding just some of the discrepancies as you get down the board, where places have a long number on a guy from an outright, and that tends to trickle its way down the rest of the card. So there are definitely some numbers out there, like Woodland. Some places have Woodland at plus 250 for a top 10. There's some 4-1s out there as well. So it's a pretty big discrepancy out there in Woodland. So I like the Woodland, Kirk, Siwoo, Finau tier, where you guys have a lot of action down there in the finishing position market. Probably not an outright, but I do think that this place sets up well for their games, and some of these numbers make a ton of sense. Yeah, Kirk and Woodland especially. I think.
What does the score have for Steele just outright? Do they hang like 100?
Those are gone, I would think.
Actually, they're 70. DraftKings is the best Steele outright.
I was going to say DraftKings has an 80 still, if you want that.
Yeah, that's 50 on FanDuel. So like, again, like to Jeff's points, like the 30 points at the end of the day, like can he win or can he not win is more the decision. But again, if you do think he can, you want to get the 30 points. It makes a huge difference. So you got to make the decision if he can, kind of in your own lane versus just chasing the number because the number is
down to 41 at BetCris. Like there's money coming in on Steele in the right places to make me.
I see myself betting the Bryson 28 or best I can, and Højgaard. There is 100, but I might have to take something a little less. 80 or above Højgaard. I think I could see myself making those moves because, a lot of guys.
Yeah, the Højgaard number I like at 80. I mean, at 100, I think it's fine at taking less at 80 or something like that. So, yeah, any other good ones you guys want to share? I'm sure we can unpack this for hours and hours and hours, but a lot of good content behind the paywall over at Betsperts Golf. I want you to check out too.
I think, just going back to next week for a moment, I think all like the historical trends, I feel like they'll have to point to Cameron Smith. If that sort of stuff matters for you, like the really long standing Masters trends that will involve having already won this season, having already done, placed at least this high at the Masters before, having played the Masters a certain amount of time. Like, I think all that stuff is going to point to Cameron Smith. That's not mean I'm not making that bet because it's probably going to be too short for me. But that's something that I'm expecting to see heavy in a lot of the content that comes in on the ether that's non-Tiger Woods related over the next few days.
Yeah, again, our friends at the Score have an 18. That is the best Cam Smith number available. I was going to
say 16 is the best I could find while Jeff was talking.
That's Score. Crazy. Like I don't know, man.
It's tough, man.
Is it like in metric? Is it some sort of conversion from Canadian that those? It's like Canadian dollars to US. Like what is going on with the Score? Has across the board the best odds for everyone.
Yeah, but it's so crazy to like the pre-event board has Cameron Smith is pretty much behind Rahm Thomas and tied with like DJ, Rory, Scheffler in front of.
Yeah,
never.
That would be the beauty of our guy, Bryson, just truck sticking this field, moving to like 16-1, bumping a couple guys down, and then we're sitting here grabbing some Cam Smith 22 next week. That would feel really good because
and I think
he's on the radar with the numbers.
If you're gonna bet outside of Rory, like you have to truly believe Rory's gonna win, Rory's gonna lose on the 18th hole or something. How can every single one of those guys' numbers not improve next week on resets as books try to compete? There's some of the prominent books that like match other books. You have to need your like fix so badly to make a Cameron Smith 16-1 bet today, because how could it possibly get shorter? Even if he does come out and trends articles as the guy, as like the long trend guy to pick. But I promise you there were I think Xander was that guy for 2 straight years. And I promise you there's probably a 3-year run where Hideki was that guy. And he finally wins the Masters when honestly, at least I stopped thinking he was going to. So shame on me.
We'll have to revisit this next week. Unless Cam Smith is like 13-1, then we'll pretend this never happened. But we'll revisit this next week.
There's no way.
It's 20. No, I don't believe so either.
There's no way. Like the whole field, 1 or 2 guys are going to get so hyped up in respected content, like closer to the weekend. I'm sure people will put stuff out that will drop a couple guys' numbers who are a bit farther back. But 99% of the field will have a better number next week than they do at this exact moment right now. I'm convinced of that.
Hideki looking healthy pushes his number. Like he's
right.
He's a little high. Like, no, and that's what I'm saying. Because I mean, Jeff, you're right. Like for everyone's number, like a couple guys have to get steamed, and it's hard to pick those out sometimes. But I think Hideki looking healthy, just looking like he can play, high level golf this week, even if he's not, super competitive. I think that might push him up and push some other people down. Bryson competing here pushes him down and pushes some other people up. So I'm fine. I would like to see Cam Smith get pushed up by those guys.
Oh yeah. And if Bryson's on a wagon this week, like I think DraftKings has a 35 on him to win the Masters. If he's looking like, I don't know how to put this, but if I saw a couple things from Bryson, like literally just sitting, beached at home, I don't know what it would be, but like just a visual cue, and I'd be making it up in my own head. Like I seen enough, like something just happened. Like I seen enough. He's ready for next week at a course that he gets criticized. He made those really stupid comments last year about what his par should be.
Yeah.
But before he was brute, big Hulk Bryson, he was like scientific, like the Masters, works perfect for how he sees the game and reads the game. And I am still there unless he's injured.
Well, I just took a screenshot of the board currently, and we will unpack it next week and see if our theories are correct, see if there's any books in particular that make major moves, see if there are moves across the board, which is typically what happens. It is kind of a copycat game, and a lot of them, there are some providers that are, under different umbrellas, and they'll move collectively. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how like the Victor Hovlands, who's right now not getting any attention, or the Cantleys and Schauffeleys of the world kind of shift here if something happens at the top of the board with maybe some of these guys. Like you said, if we get a Rory week, we get a Spieth week, we got Bryson this week, all of a sudden those things start to change quite a bit. Jeff, there are 50s out there on Berger. Just
oh God,
currently.
And I don't know, like, how high does the Xander number get after he pissed so many people off again in a match play, which is a very polarizing format to piss people off in?
Yeah, 22s are the best. I can see that getting up to 25.
His course history is going to save his number from getting too high, though.
Good point. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Good stuff as always. We did talk about the Valero a little bit, right?
Yeah, we got in there. It's kind of like two peas in a pod. Like it's a 2-week event essentially. Like this is just the appetizer, and that's the main dish. Speaking of that too, if you want one more reason to work, where's Matsuyama's head at? That guy has not fully finalized the champions dinner menu, is what I'm hearing. Like he has. I mean, you guys are married. You know what a pain in the butt a wedding planning is. Like it's the same thing. Planning a huge meal for a bunch of dudes. Like,
just choosing dinner on Tuesday night is hard.
Yeah, trying to figure that out. Like he's got responsibilities next week, and he's coming off an injury. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. So,
love it as always. Andy and Jeff, we will be back to do it in full form. Maybe we'll have some other guests next week for Masters Week. We'll spice it up. So, remember, rate and review. This is available on YouTube, on our Betsperts page, and then in podcast form on Apple and Spotify. So for Randy and Jeff, I'm Ryan. We will see you all next week.